Well, just pretend.
Project.
Just pretend. Yeah.
Well,
Fine.
good.
Get you a hairbrush.
Yeah.
Your authority.
I can my own.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yep. So I do have to admit, I am going to go a little bit Mark Corrigan on you all this evening because I am a massive history geek, a la David Mitchell's character in Peep Show. And so I'm here to talk about something which has been really important. Is it going to jam because it's a gift? No, good. I'm going to tell you something that's been really important in military history throughout the eras, which is camouflage. It's always been important to keep your troops concealed and away from enemies, and it is a really, really interesting topic, I promise you. So there are tons and tons of different types of camouflage, whether you're fighting in the desert, at sea, even in the snow. But I'm here to talk to you about my absolute favourite type of camouflage, because there is just one which is the ultimate. So the camouflage that I'm going to tell you about is able to conceal something as big as this. This is HMS Olympic. It's the sister ship to the Titanic and was launched just before Titanic in about 1911-12. And it's huge, and it used to carry troops in the First World War, and also we had ships carrying supplies around the globe that needed to be protected from things like dreadnoughts and U-boats. So it's quite hard and strategic that they needed to find a way to safely get the troops and the food across the oceans. So the solution for this came from a very, very unusual concept, which was from a painter called Norman Wilkinson. Now, he had an idea and wrote to the Admiralty in 1917 explaining his fantastic idea, which was inspired by art, how to conceal something as big as the Olympic. What he came up with was this: Dazzle camouflage. I am not making this up, this is 100% true. It's done with different contrasting colours and shapes to make the ship look rather different to the shape that it normally is. So it's not to conceal, not to conceal, it's to confuse. So it works kind of like these zebras, so you can't quite work out how many zebra are in that group. So it just means that the shapes are distorted and you can't tell whether it's a big ship or it's a small ship. So there's lots of that in nature. So just to bring you back to the Olympic, as you can see, the application of Dazzle does mean that the shapes on the smokestacks mean it could be facing another direction. The curves mean that it could be, again, going one way when it is in fact going the other. So it's a good way to deceive the enemy. So the idea for it came from the Vorticists, which was an art movement from about 1914 that started in Britain. And even though Wilkinson was not a Vorticist himself, he was a very traditional painter, he was in the Navy, he'd seen this and saw how it could be applied. After the First World War, a lot of Vorticist artists who worked on Dazzle camouflage decided to use it as part of their artworks, and included it in a lot of paintings, and Picasso tried to take claim for it, which is a lie. So he didn't make it up, but he was involved in Cubism and Futurism, which is involved. So this is a diagram for a ship in full dazzle, which looks rather splendid. And as you can see, it's using lots of different colours, which doesn't come out in those black and white pictures that you see. So there were lots of different colours, and there were 4,000 different merchant ships done in Dazzle and 400 naval vessels. So this is at the Royal Academy of Arts, where they had a lovely collection of ladies who would paint these tiny little models, which you can now see in the Imperial War Museum, and they used to test them with a little periscope to see whether the patterns were going to be effective. But did it work? No. So unfortunately, as awesome as this is an idea, Dazzle camouflage looks fantastic, not massively effective in the field of battle. But I think it's got a certain striking impact, and it always reminds me a little bit of Yellow Submarine, and it's kind of about 50 years ahead of its time. It's a little bit more, you know, Summer of Love and, you know, those sort of wacky designs that you get on the psychedelic posters. So it does have a place in my heart. But it did continue for use into World War II, so they did have Dazzle camouflage, even though they proved it didn't really work, but it did give that confusion, and the range of accuracy did shift. So if you were aiming at, say, a particular tower or something, you might just have that degree of accuracy that meant you saved lives. So where can I see Dazzle today? HMS Belfast, which is on the Thames, just at Tower Bridge, and is done in full beautiful Dazzle livery, and as you can see, it's in some splendid colours there, so do go and visit that, because you can go and see that today. It's also used in Formula One. Very recently, the Red Bull team have used Dazzle on their latest car to deceive competitors and rivals, so that you can't see where they've made aerodynamic changes. So as you can see, it really does blur those lines, and on something like this where you'd be able to see the fins, it's just really concealing those technical details. So you can see that the Dazzle does confuse, but it doesn't really take away some of the shape. In researching for this presentation as well, my favourite jewellery designers, Tatty Devine in London, have done an entire range of jewellery based on Dazzle camouflage. How exciting is this? So I can actually finally say that Dazzle is back in fashion and here to stay. Thank you.